As some of you may know, this is the year of the dragon, a very auspicious year for us. And what better year than to turn over a new leaf and rectify my neglect of dragons for the whole of last year. On the one hand, PNSO and Haolonggu kept me plenty busy, but on the other, there just weren't that many good dragons that came my way. Now this year, that changes, starting with this, my very belated New Year special dragon. As with all Creators models, there's plenty of volume in the shipping, with yet more padded space within. And here's the big product box with very nice cover art as always. And once inside, another huge ass clamshell. This is one well protected model, and while I've always thought it excessive for this shining, shimmering dragon, anything to protect the paint. And here he is, freed from the clamshell, and immediately his presence is blindingly impressive. Now first, the size. For an idea of the space you might need, this model is 35.5 centimeters or 14 inches at the highest point of the right wingtip. For the width, factor in about 38 centimeters or 15 inches at a minimum. And for depth, give yourself at least 22 centimeters or 8.7 inches. Now obviously, it would be nice to have more negative space framing the model, but that's the minimum I'd say. And as for first impressions, I'll say as I did with the figure builder version.
Impressive. Most impressive.
Now first, the color. When the release images came out, I found it hard to tell if this model was going to have that metallic shine we got in the figure builder. It looked pretty matte to me from some angles, but thankfully, those fears are gone out the window. Not only do you see that metallic gold, you'll also see different shades of it. And second, the details. And when it comes to dragons, of course, the main thing is scalation. I always look for regional variety of size and shape. And while dinosaurs tend to have tessellated scales, I like a lot of imbricated scales when it comes to dragons, especially in the Monster Hunter dragons. How does this model stand? Well, you know how some people look like they have muscles on top of muscles? Well, this model has scales on top of scales, and you'll see plenty of examples of this. Unlike some models with removable wings, these ones are fixed. The good thing is they're less fiddly and shouldn't need external supports. So let's go! Now right here in the head, you get drawn in immediately. This dragon is chock full of detail, insane detail, and anywhere you look, intricate scales fit beautifully together. I'll just look at that facial area. I'll look at this, all that detail. And even in this small area, you can see they've used different color shades. And here in these fang-like structures, maybe a bit of lip, and also the entire area going into the chin. In the side flaps, almost every, well, call it a vein or a rib, every supportive structure, no matter how small, is segmented. In between them, you see the inlaying of these scales. Here and other parts, you'll see green combined with gold, suggesting a mix of the metallic with the organic. The mouth really impressed me here. And look at the tongue, it's not just one color, but has a two-color theme going on. And just look at those textures there. And going up the horns, you can see a variety of colors worked into just this one small area. See how organic they look, with stages of erupting growth interrupted with growth lines, all in relief. Again, look at the different colors used here. no laziness, and plenty of complexity. Then the eyes themselves, red with a central pupil. Such a feast of scale detail. There's no better way to get across how intricate and exquisite these are than to bring in my trusty almond. That's the kind of size and level of detail we're talking about. Now going down, we see the neck. I could really just shut up here as you take in this incredible vista of sculpting mastery, and all these textures and three-dimensionality. And from the side of the neck, look at how these different shades play out. The gold is more coppery here, and as it proceeds ventrally, become more green to nicely signal the transition into a more organic space. You see how in each of these layers you have a different morphology of scale altogether. The size, the shape, the directionality, just beautifully different. Now going to the ventral surface and the chest, even in this lesser starring area, there's some complexity that doesn't outshine and yet does not way underperform compared to the metal parts. And as we come down the arms, and in fact from here you can also see the lower limb as well, again that level of scale detail you just demand in a larger sized, more premium model. I saved up for 3 months for this and it was totally worth it. Now look at the way all these pieces fit together. Again, not a single scale repeated. And you just get that scale within a scale impression. It's like your eyes just can't stop being led from one detail to another. And down to the smaller sculpted textures in the fingers and talons. And then likewise in the feet and toes. And of course, those claws. You can see here that again, plenty of complexity. I keep overusing this word in the paint application. And then the tail, again with those textures and color complexities. I noted in the figure builder this bulge, and wondered if it was a storage organ of some sort, perhaps even of fat. The Monster Hunter monsters have all kinds of unusual features that stick out like this and prevent them from just being the kind of predictable shape you might expect. And finally, we come to the main focus, those wings, and I'm sure you've caught more than a few glimpses by now. First, just look at the wing arms. These are beautifully detailed, with a kind of twisting form to the musculature. look at the individual textures within each scale. Now, how anatomically logical this is, I don't know, nor actually do I really mind that much. I mean, given how big the wing arms and the hands are, you really want to forget the physics here and just enjoy the very pleasing aesthetics. And going down to the forearms and the fingers and talons. And even here in the fingers, you can see the transition from metallic to organic. The palmar surface, even without the shine, shows beauty and detail. In the talons, I initially thought they weren't painted fully, but we can just consider this a similar transition from the metallic to the organic. And from the back here, all this detail, with these shades of color running from one to the other and back again. And here at the edges of the wings, it's a more silvery gold. The colors gradually darken, going towards the center, becoming more coppery and then dirty gold. Another beautiful aspect of Shagaru Magala is the shape of the wings. It always reminds me of the form of the star, celestial and ethereal, and who can fail to love that symmetry here? It also reminds me of a maple leaf. Again, detail everywhere. From the transition in all the different types of scales, you see that. You see that very clearly. For example, here you see imbricated scales overlapping like the shingles on the roof. Then even here, where the scales are more tessellated, you don't get that cheap cross-hatching cheat I really hate on a more premium statue. And all of them are unique, which reinforces the organic quality of them. No lazy replication work here. And even at the edges, you can see not a single detail is uniform. I really think I could have stopped talking long ago, as I'm running out of words, and just show you. And here in the wing supports, again a different type of structure. And everywhere you get an embarrassment of visual and textural riches. The back here is more of the same, and it's sufficient for you to just see for yourself. And finally, we have to talk about the backdrop. Now, in many statues, even some highly priced ones, I've noticed that the quality of paint and detail tend to fall off when it comes to the bases, or whatever setting the main star is in. And while sometimes that serves to keep focus on the star, even better would be if that same kind of detail and quality applied everywhere. But the star is done so well that it outshines even the splendid backdrop. And here, that's the case. If you look at the base here, you'll see immediately how the color fades from the bottom on up. The textures and the colors are handled very well with three visual elements. This more, shall we say, sandy part, this rocky part. Then this fallen spire. You see in each of these color complexity and detail that shows you there were absolutely no lazy shortcuts taken whatsoever. For example, look at the relief detail in these runes. Such pride in the work. And most importantly of all, you see this? I believe that this is a shared skin of Shagaru Magala, which is the previous form before the more mature Shagaru emerges. You can see how the skin is not just colored but textured so insanely, creating again a very organic look. I believe that these are where the wing arms were. And so everything really ties in together. The creators' models don't have a masterpiece line, being themselves an elevated line for Monster Hunter figures. And yet, if there was one that could be differentiated from the rest, this Shagaru Magala is it. Now, some miscellaneous observations. The first is that because this is a collectible, you don't get any rounded off points, orange caps, and other sanitized whatnot. You're going to have sharp edges and points, and I mean unapologetically sharp. So this is one you want to keep away from children. The other thing you definitely want to be careful of is dust. All these beautiful sculpted details mean that dust can easily and happily settle and lodge in these little crevices, nooks and crannies. So if a glass display cabinet is too extravagant, then regular dusting is your friend here. Now, comparisons. Obviously, we'll look first at the figure builder. A couple of years ago, I showed you the beautiful figure builder Shagaru Magala. I marveled at its brilliance, literally in the metallic gold and cyan that shimmers from almost all angles, amazing detail and color from so small a figure. This is still possibly my favorite Monster Hunter figure builder, and there are a couple of things to note in the differences. One thing I am missing from the figure builder are these areas of metallic cyan blended together with the gold, which led to a visually interesting contrast. In the medial arm, for example, that metallic look is gone, creating more of an organic look, as I've said. In both the palmar and dorsal surfaces of the hand, that's gone, but it's replaced by other complexities in the gold. But in the wings really, is where I really would have liked to see some metallic cyan in some of these facets. In absolute terms, these scales are very small and intricate, so you have an almost insect wing appearance and texture. All this veining gives you more breaking up of light per unit area, and together with metallic cyan, an illusion of iridescence. And because the creator's model is scaled up quite faithfully, you're getting absolutely larger scales. Without the cyan as well, you will lose that effect. However, with so much more intricate detail and textures, you will still get a shimmery feel, though of a different aesthetic than what you may have liked in the figure builder. In addition, remember that there's still plenty of color complexity here. So all the differences don't look lazy and speak of deliberate design. Now, some other Creators models. First, here's the very iconic Rathalos. And what you can see is the size difference. Now luckily, nothing as ridiculous as you would have gotten with the Fatalis, and you can see a completely different aesthetic in the design. Now, for another shiny dragon, here's the Creators Model Valstrax. Now this is a dragon I really like, being generally silver, but with enough shades to still make it look real and organic. Again, a different aesthetic. Now here's the most recent Creators model, the Malzeno. Again, of course, different aesthetic, and you can see the very organic versus metallic difference. But I do have to say that in terms of detail, relooking at it, it does look rather rough, even compared to other Creators models. Just for a size comparison for those of you who want to look. And then for my favorites. First, the Velkhana. Every time I see this, I'm impressed by the beauty of form, pose, and coloration. I like the relatively peaceful posture of this dragon. I can't help but feel that after looking at today's piece, there are some areas that would have been leveled up if this were redone today. And then finally, what to date is still my favorite Creators model. This is the Kushala Daora. And even though again, we see that detail and paint apps may not be as evolved as today's Shagaru, it still stands out to me because of the pose, the general color, and there's just something regal and badass about this one. And I love black, I absolutely do. Now all of these Creators models are wonderful in their own way, but I think I can say that in this new Shagaru Magala, we have something more elevated, not just in terms of sheer detail, but also how the paint apps then complement that detail. This is certainly a first run with paint apps that justify the price. This Shagaru Magala is what a premium model with higher prices should be. Every single area, in terms of sculpt and paint, taken care of without a single glaring weak spot I can see. If you don't want to risk waiting for a second run, save up for this. As much as I love my Kushala and Velkhana, if you must get only one display piece, I can confidently tell you that this is the one you won't regret placing in that hallowed space. Now let me know what you think, and for my long-suffering dragon fans, I promise you that this year I'm not going to neglect dragons. I'll see you in the next video.